Without villains in our lives, wouldn't life be boring? I may not be a superhero, but I refuse to watch a superhero sail through life without any obstacles or challenges. What makes a superhero like Spider-Man the lovable superhero he is today? He can fight all odds to maintain order in the world. In every storyline, a villain employs creative problems to prevent Spider-Man from doing his duty, and these villains deserve credit for keeping Spider-Man on his toes. I am a Spidey fan, but I am also a fan of the foes of Spider-Man fights. It's because of them that I get to see Spider-Man's abilities, both physical and mental, to fight them. These villains are overlooked, causing one to focus on Spider-Man's triumph over them. But I would like to reverse it and look at each of Spider-Man's foes who keep reminding him that life will never be easy and that giving up is not a solution. Here's a list of Spidey's worst enemies. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Tombstone. Lonnie Lincoln, a boy raised in New York City's Harlem, was often ridiculed in his neighborhood for his unconventional looks. He was a black man who had a skin condition called albinism, and his faulty vocal cords allowed him to speak only in whispers, not the one to cower down to pressure. Lincoln spent a lot of time working on his body and converted each of his negatives into positive ones. Soon, he used his icy looks and huge build to become an extortionist, pay or get beat. His intimidating presence and looks earned him the name Tombstone. Only one person from his school wasn't scared of him and spoke to him easily. This man was Joe Robertson, who grew up to become a journalist, while Tombstone, from a local bully, became a wanted mobster. Tombstone's first interaction with Spider-Man was with Peter Parker, who possessed all the evidence Robbie collected against a murder committed by Tombstone. Despite a fight back from the mighty Tombstone, Parker defeats him in his Spider-Man identity, leading to Tombstone's arrest. This defeat sows the seeds of hatred against Spider-Man, who has achieved the impossible feat of arresting Tombstone, a thing he had been evading for decades. Robbie is also arrested, since the murder evidence against Tombstone showed Robbie as a witness who didn't report the crime back then. Later, Tombstone blackmails Robbie into getting Spider-Man to conduct a breakout from prison. Post this breakout, Tombstone and Spider-Man engage in several battles, until a point when Tombstone turns to Spider-Man to help him rescue his daughter Janice from his treacherous crime boss Hammerhead. Tombstone gains superhuman powers when Robbie accidentally locks him in a gas chamber containing Diox-3 that was meant to kill Robbie. He attains a superpower where his skin can't be destroyed, allowing him to withstand temperatures of 1200 to minus 80 degrees Fahrenheit. He also has the strength to carry something as heavy as 6 tons. Tombstone's reflexes are razor sharp, so he even earned a place in the hand. He could take bullets or any forceful impact without being hurt. With all these powers, Tombstone looked regal and towering in his pale skin. White hair, knife-like teeth, a trench coat over a dark-colored shirt, a leather belt that held his trousers and matching boots to go with him. He first appeared in the comic issue Web Spider-Man, number 36. The Spot. The Spot, as the name suggests, may imply an insignificant thing, but it isn't. Not this Spot. His actual name is Jonathan Ohm. He's one of the main antagonists in the MCU, especially in Spideyverse. Employed by the Kingpin, Jonathan's job as a scientist was to find out the origin of the powers of Cloak, the twin of Dagger, who has powers to teleport and turn corporeal through the Dark Force portal. Jonathan works hard and performs experiments to study Cloak's abilities, until he succeeds in creating a portal into the Dark Force dimension. But the experiment goes wrong. As a result, there's an instant blackout, which needs to be rectified. The portal, created by Jonathan, reaches another terminus, and Jonathan must now travel through this portal to make things right. When he travels through this portal, he realizes he has mistakenly reached not the Dark Force portal, but another realm known as Spot World. Spot World is where light and darkness coexist, like black and white. Suspended in this realm, Jonathan makes his way back to Earth but finds himself looking into a white-bodied human with black spots all over. A better example, he looked like a human Dalmatian with black spots all over. So, his original bespectacled nerdy looks of a scientist who wore an apron over formals were completely gone. His face was a big, large black spot in the animated version. These spots weren't mere spots but time-space stations. Realizing his gained power, Jonathan renames himself the Spot. There are 2 reasons why Spot hates Spider-Man. The first is when he first comes out of the portal and tells people about his newly acquired powers. Spider-Man mocks him and laughs. Secondly, while Spot proved his Spot powers by defeating Spider-Man in the first round, he lost in the second round, thereby lying exposed to Spider-Man. Spot realizes the loopholes in his powers. He later forms a revenge squad with Gibbons, Kangaroo, and Grizzly to beat Spider-Man. But Spider-Man knows Spot so well that he always manages to defeat him. Spot's personality is enigmatic, but he is also very volatile, becoming susceptible to mental issues that eventually lead to his downfall. Spot's unique powers include his ability to travel through any portal and influence things and people in that portal. Although Spot lacks strength, when he faces his opponent, he surrounds them with multiple spots, each qualifying a punch. Multiple punches result in weakening the opponent. Spot's constant need for validation as a formidable power makes him become a solo operative. He becomes instrumental in various battles involving Mr. Negative against Magia. Despite all the villainy, his most poignant moment is when he leaves and gets in the villain's trap, which is anti-dimensional to his portals. He loses his sanity and is unable to establish contact with friends. In this state, he leaves a letter with Spider-Man, with whom he resolves issues. The letter was attached to a storybook that he read to his son Wyatt as a kid. But when Spider-Man hands over the parcel, the storybook and letter have nothing except black spots depicting Spot's mental condition. He first appeared in the comic issue number 97 titled The Spectacular Spider-Man. Swarm. Fritz von Meyer was an evil scientist during Hitler's era who was born in Leipzig, Germany. He's considered an expert in toxicology and the study of insects, known as entomology. During World War II, he fled Germany and settled in South America, where he reared bees. Once, while on a hunt to look for insects, he discovered a beehive that contained bees of a different kind. They were mutant bees with extraordinary killing abilities, which easily attracted evil Fritz to them, hoping he could work on them to serve them. While he does so, the experiment goes wrong, and the bees attack him, killing his mortal self. What's left of him is a skeleton and a swarm of bees, fragments of his consciousness. So he becomes an amalgamation of the bees, who now possess his scientific intelligence and thinking. His hooded cape and a swarm of bees surrounding him give him the name Swarm. These bees were now his pets who would later, through his programming, become giant killer bees. Swarm's enmity with Spider-Man is the basis of an age-old belief that spiders and bees are staunch rivals. He first meets Spider-Man when the champions kill Swarm's queen bee, rendering him useless, and his mortal remains, a skeleton, are sent to New York City's Empire State University to be studied by the biophysics department. Here, Spider-Man worked as a teaching assistant under Peter Parker's identity. The scientist working on Swarm finds a queen bee nestled in the skull of Swarm, resulting in a new hive and the regeneration of Swarm's life. The scientist captures the queen bee and encases it. Swarm, on learning this, goes for the scientist, but Spider-Man fights him using scores of chemicals that serve as insect repellents, saving the scientist. To avenge this defeat, Swarm takes over the university campus and creates mayhem, but Spider-Man uses his web liquid and chemicals to defeat Swarm, making the bees go rogue. By the time Swarm tames the bees, they recognize Spider-Man and develop a fear of him. The Swarm's powers are most potent in the presence of the queen bee and her bees. The beehive surrounding him is a defensive shield to keep enemies at bay since these bees are poisonous. Since Swarm is a composition of bees, he can influence these bees to become giant mutes and attack everyone around him. His iconic image shows him riding a monstrous queen bee. Swarm debuted in comic number 14, titled The Champions, in July 1977. Big Wheel. Jackson Wheel, a conniving businessman, hires the technologically savvy thief Rocket Racer to steal all the evidence that could convict him to get a clean chit from all his embezzlements. Rocket Racer, being the no-ethics guy, blackmails Wheel to pay a huge amount if he wants the documents, not the one to be cornered. Wheel hires Tinkerer to build him a mighty mobile weapon that would have guns and all kinds of arms good enough to exterminate people and objects. Tinkerer indeed builds one, and it turns out to be a massive thing with huge wheels, carrying all kinds and sizes of gun nozzles that could fire bullets and launch rockets to wipe an entire city to rubble. Seeing this piece of marvel, Jackson takes off to chase Rocket Racer to retrieve the documents and, in the process, destroys everything that comes his way. Happy with his power, he named himself Big Wheel. And that's how a double-breasted suited businessman wearing thick-framed black glasses earned this name. Although the giant monowheel weapon holder had great potential, it had loopholes, and that was water. It falls into the Hudson River during the rampage, rendering it inactive. Big Wheel isn't a very well-etched-out character, and his first meeting with Spider-Man was in the comic issue number 182, The Amazing Spider-Man, who first notices him while Jackson is out to kill Rocket Racer. Big Wheel never really hated Spider-Man and appeared in comic issue number 12 in Spider-Man Unlimited, where Spider-Man engaged a sobered-down Big Wheel services to fight Stiltman. Had Big Wheel been successful with his artificial weaponry, his confidence would have been high, making him a dangerous supervillain, but that was not to be. Carrion, a college professor named Miles Warren, successfully cloned himself. The clone developed an ability to attack any organic matter, thereby decaying its host Miles' body, leading to his apparent death. By now, the clone had aged to Miles' actual age and finally looked like a dead man walking. It resembles a bony silhouette with minimal clothing and a bandana tied around his head. This clone came to be known as Carrion. After Miles' death, his parasitic clone Carrion went all out to get Spider-Man since he blamed him for Miles' death and Gwen Stacy's death. Carrion used the Carrion virus to create Spider-Man's clone called Spider Amoeba to kill Spider-Man. Still, it was a failed attempt, and the lab where Carrion lived exploded, killing him and Amoeba. But Carrion couldn't die as long as its virus was alive. The next one to get infected was Parker's classmate, Malcolm McBride, who got infected while working in Miles' earlier lab, where Carrion was first created. Malcolm becomes the second Carrion who goes all out to perform evil activities and forms a group with Doppelganger, Shriek, Demigoblin, and Carnage. They cause mayhem, and Spider-Man goes out to stop them. Finally, in a moment of weakness, Shriek cures Malcolm of the Carrion virus. Elsewhere, the most dangerous form of Carrion gets created by Agent William Allen of S.H.I.E.L.D. The third Carrion had the power to infect people with something called red dust that had the power to control people's minds. Spider-Man neutralizes this third Carrion, although Spider-Man wins the offer. This deadly supervillain has been the cause of some ravaging battles. Carrion was first seen in Spectacular Spider-Man issue number 25 in 1978. Carrion's powers include the ability to cause decay in anyone by a mere touch. Carrion also has the power to teleport and has some psionic abilities. Carrion also attacks its opponent with its powerful red dust, prepared from a mix of various chemicals, resulting in the Red Death. Carrion can reduce its body's density, making it intangible and light enough to fly. The Hypno Hustler. This character was introduced in the Spectacular Spider-Man comic issue number 24 in 1978. While villains are not supposed to be popular, the Hypno Hustler rates lowest in the supervillains rankings. Born Antoine Desloin is a band member of the music group Mercy Killers. He carries the typical 70s rock music vibe, has a guitar slung across his upper torso, wears a bodysuit, boots, headphones around his head, and large goggles covering his eyes. Antoine named himself Hypno Hustler because of his ability to hypnotize anyone listening to the band, after which he and his band members would rob the audience. Peter Parker was in the audience listening to Hypno's band. He figured the act of hypnosis, and his Spider-Man self took over. He found out that Hypno's headphones protected him from getting hypnotized. Spider-Man called them out, caught them in his web, and handed them over to the police. Hypno's appearance in the storylines has been sporadic and not too memorable. His powers, apart from using hypnosis technology through his guitar, he also has the power to bring out knives from the soles of his shoes. His boots emit knockout gases. Sony Pictures announced a full-fledged movie on this character, with Danny Glover playing the lead. They promised to elevate the character and present a more contemporary side to the character. Shothra. Shothra is a wasp who is the deity of the wasp commune. It's not known how she earned this name, but her whole being is based on the existence of Spider-Man, since she feasts on Spider-Man totems. She considers it her right to consume Spider-Man as food, since he is nothing more than a totem. Totems carry Spider-Man's abilities, giving Shothra access to similar skills. She's dangerous and conniving. She appears in the end of Spider-Man issue number 1 in a monstrous avatar. She looks as horrific as a gigantic black wasp with tentacles coming out of her head, scary eyes, and clawed limbs. When she first attacks Spider-Man, she uses her powers to sting him, but Spidey escapes. She again tries to get to Spider-Man by honey trapping him to tarnish his image, but this time, Spider-Man works around her and fights her in her most potent self. Apart from stings, Shothra also can fly. The Iguana. The biologist named Curtis Connors, to remove the lizardness in his system, tries to experiment on an iguana, but the effort is futile, since the iguana, also referred to as Iggy, turns a mutant, retaining the consciousness of Connors. Connors now had a violent iguana condition with a supervillain status, earning the name Iguana. With his new status, he goes out to create mayhem. He now forms a pact with the lizard to fight Spider-Man, but Spider-Man tricks him by increasing his powers and reducing those of the lizard, which defeats the iguana. In the process, Curtis gets cured since the lizard condition no longer exists. Later, while imprisoned in the Central Park Zoo, an iguana attacks Spider-Man, and it was a horrific battle as Spider-Man fought the iguana and all the other reptiles, such as crocodile. Iguana's ability to hypnotize and control other reptiles. Iguana's ability to hypnotize and control other reptiles made it even more difficult for Spider-Man to defeat him. It felt like fighting an army of reptiles. In addition, Iguana's ability to climb walls and reproduce his limbs, his intense speed of movement of as much as 40 miles per hour, and his superhuman strength that felt concentrated in his claws and tail made him a formidable enemy. Spider-Man, however, wins and gets them webbed. Iguana first appeared in the Amazing Spider-Man 2012 video game. Doppelganger, rightfully as its meaning, is an evil copy of Spider-Man who came into being during the Infinity War. He was created by Magus and possessed powers similar to Spider-Man's, climbing walls and accurate webbing skills. Magus used the Anthropomorpho's manifestations to create the Doppelganger. From an apparent view, Doppelganger seems more powerful than Spider-Man, since he possesses 6 arms with talons, fangs, and animal-like claws. However, he isn't half as intelligent as Spider-Man. His senses were limited, like that of domestic pets such as a cat or dog. He was killed by Hobgoblin in the Infinity War, only to be revived by Demogoblin, which made him serve Demogoblin until they went their separate ways. He joined the Carnage team and was part of the killing spree by Carnage, Shriek, and Carrion. He survived several attempts on his life by Spider-Man, and each time he was saved. He debuted as a character in the comic, issue number 94 and 95, in Web of Spider-Man, 1992. I think Doppelganger had a serval self in his personality, always looking to follow orders. At first, it was Carnage, and then Shriek took him under his wing to mother him. No wonder after the downfall of Carnage, Doppelganger was booked by the Authority. Marvelous verdict. A study of the supervillains brings me to the conclusion that most of them chose the path of evil due to circumstances. Some were open to being reformed, and some became power-hungry mortals, willing to go to any length to fight Spider-Man. Still, some are waiting for validation of their evil status, living in confusion and chaos. They are worthy of compassion. Do you agree? Until next time, here's me signing off to come back with another list. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.